Building Men is brought to you by Finish the Race Apparel, FTRapparel.com, the creators of all things building men, and by Become Stronger Industries, become-stronger.com, the creators of handmade steel maces, hammers, and other badass equipment.
When I talk to my clients, even though we're dealing with a lot of psychology things and introspective things, a key component of that is always you have to get your physicality dialed in as well. You don't have to be some crazy athlete, but movement is so important. So I would encourage your audience, get up and move every day.
You're listening to the Building Men podcast with Dennis and Anthony Miralda, brothers on a mission
to help you become the strongest version of yourself, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
What's up, brother?
Yo, brother, how you doing?
I'm good. I miss you, man. I gotta tell you, I was talking to Julie last night. We were reflecting on our past week. We did the Spartan Race last Sunday, so a week and a hook ago we did the Spartan. Just finally getting back to feeling like I wasn't hit by a car, like a hit and run from a car going not super fast, 18 miles an hour, but hit me hard enough to where I fell down and I'm like, that really hurt. It took me a week to get through it. But I was telling him, I missed bullshitting with you. I miss seeing you in person, being in the studio in person. So we're doing this virtually right now. So I wanted to start off by just acknowledging that. And as I went through the race, you came up in my mind a couple of times.
When times were getting tough.
Times were getting tough. Yeah. There were a few times where I wasn't sure I would be able to get through the obstacle in front of me. I pulled out some motivation, especially from 2.5 years ago when you were helping me do pull-ups for the first time in my life. Like I was able to do pull-ups and you were helping me through that. There was a time on the monkey bars, which I haven't done monkey bars since I was 7 years old. Usually when you stop doing monkey bars, you just stop. You don't go back to them ever again in your life.
No.
One of the training things that someone told me was really work on your grip strength for the Spartan. That's a really important thing. So even doing dead hangs a couple times a day for a minute at a time, I challenge people to try that. It's a game changer with your grip strength doing dead hangs. But anyway, I'm on the monkey bars and they were further apart than I thought they were going to be. And I have a pretty big wingspan. I'm 6'4". My wingspan is like a 6'6" guy. You had to get momentum to get from one to the other. And they were about 30 feet in length from the start of the monkey bars to the end of the monkey bars. And you get to the end, you have to hit a cowbell is how you get down from it. So that was the piece that I was really visualizing. So for me, it was the monkey bars and the spear throw were the two things that I was like, this is something that I need to do. I need to be able to get this. I was practicing it, visualizing it. And I get about 2/3 of the way and my hands start to slip a little bit. And I'm trying to hump up and get to the top. And that's where I pulled, you entered my mind in a motivational way as I was trying to do my first set of pull-ups when I was living with you 2.5 years ago. So that was one piece. And so I was able to get to the next one. I'm thinking I only have to go 3 more times and I'm to the end. And it was one of those things. I got to where I was one more and I swung back and I'm like, I can do this. I have it in me to do this. And I swung and I hit the cowbell. It was the most glorious sound ever, hitting the cowbell. I dropped to the ground and the scream that I let out was so guttural. It was like the face that I made. It was like Julie said I looked like the Tasmanian devil. It was like this guttural roar that I let out after getting to the end of the monkey bars. And it was the third obstacle. I still had 2 hours left to go. But at that moment, it was I just accomplished something that I didn't think was possible. And I thought about you. So I wanted to tell you that right now.
And that meant so much more to you than it did to other people in that competition. Just thinking back when we were in the gym at 4:30 in the morning and I had you strapped to a band that was meant to pull a truck, and I had to crank. I needed a team of people to pull it down on your leg just so we could get your ass up. Your 255 pounds of goo up to that bar. And man, but we went in there and did it. Every other day you kept working out, and just remembering that where you were to where you are now is you're like a lifetime ahead of that, like it was a battle to get like 3, 4, or
Yeah.
5, whatever, with the band itself. And now you're launching yourself across these monkey bars 2.5 years later.
Yeah, the US government would shoot rockets at Russia with this band that we were using to try to get me up on the pull-up bar.
Yes.
But here's the thing, being able to do pull-ups now, I can do pull-ups. It's a different thing to be able to hang from a bar and do the monkey bars. I thought, oh, I can do pull-ups, I'm fine. It's not the same. So my advice, if you have kids right now and your kids are able to do the monkey bars, if they're not, get them on the monkey bars and just have them do that. Like, say you have kids that are 3 years old or whatever, have them grab on and like help them through it until they can do it for themselves. And then don't ever let them stop. Like every week, have your kids go out and do monkey bars until they're 50 years old. Because if you can do that, the grip strength you have to have, the core, the upper body, it is one of the best workouts to be able to do it. And how many people that are past the age of 9 even do monkey bars anymore? It's such an amazing thing. So now as I'm training for it, I would go to the park and I'm this 45-year-old dude swinging on the monkey bars, and I have to knock Brittany off to the ground. Like, all right, bitch, like you're 5 now, but it's my turn.
Yeah, I've been waiting here. Right,
Yeah.
you're done.
And some moms would get mad at me because I knocked a little girl off. But listen, I was patient. It's my turn to do the monkey bars.
I still don't understand why you need to use the slide though, because I don't see the benefit in that. But I guess that's like the reward you get after completing the the monkey bars.
Dude, we should go to a park and just slides are horrible. FYI, like it seems fun, but imagine now getting on a slide and going down, especially the ones that turn. I mean, right now,
against the walls.
We need to have a bet, and the loser of the bet has to go to a park and like go down every single slide at the park right now because it's horrible.
They need to spend an hour at the playground just doing the slides. That's got to be what it is.
Slides for 1 hour.
And then I'm going to be on the news later that I'm not allowed within 100 yards of this playground.
You're like, God damn it. I just got past the last time I wasn't allowed close to the playground, and now I'm not allowed there again. I don't know how I'm going to segue into our guests right now. I'm not, usually I could bring a segue in. I'm segue-less this time. I don't have a segue from the slides.
You're stumped.
I'm stumped with the segue. But having said that, I will bring in our guest. I love this guy. The quick setup for this is I believe he found me through listening to Angelo Cisco to Alpha Hippie and then started following along with the Building Men podcast. Reached out to me. It was the last summer. It was the summer of 21. And we got on a call and we bullshitted for about an hour. And then from that point, we've talked at least twice a month, I'd say, for the last year. As he was getting started in his business, he did a whole transformation in his life, changed everything. And now he's on this brand new journey. Love this guy. Let's bring on, he's a business life coach. He is the host of the podcast Return to Authenticity, which we have both been on this podcast. He is a Bills fan, Buffalo Bills fan, and his name is Eric Sardina. Eric, what's up, man?
Man, I'm super creeped out right now. I didn't know it would be possible to be that creeped out listening to all the playground talk. I cannot imagine. It's like 50-year-old men hanging on the monkey bars. Not a good idea. I'm thinking a restraining order is coming. I don't know.
Oh, it's the ink is fresh on the restraining order from that. Have you when was the last time you were at a playground? When you're working out, do you ever train and go to an area, do pull-ups or anything at a playground?
No, not at a playground. No. I stay away from school playgrounds. I'm not just like, hey, what's going on? 12-year-old. Yeah, I'm 54. Move over. It's my turn on the monkey.
It's my turn.
My turn.
Where you play at, kid?
You hear the whoop whoop. All of a sudden, the cops are rolling up hot. They're like, yeah, another
Sardina one. Again.
The creeper.
You're hauling us out of there.
That's exactly it.
So here's the thing: to find a spot to do pull-ups, I mean, you could go find a tree somewhere or whatever. Like Anthony at Soulberry, there was the one tree that we would go out to and do pull-ups on the tree. But other than that, playgrounds are good for training. It's just the kids piece of it. They're ruining everything at the playgrounds. I believe that you need to have like an adult space that people can go and train. And I know there are parks that have like the fitness mile, and it's like, okay, do a sit-up here or do a lunge here. But I feel like we can create something that's functional for adults to go and train at a higher level.
Agreed. Yeah. And the thing with those monkey bars, the little poles, the part that you hold on to, it's so skinny. It's for those little hands, And so when you put your big meat hook on it, it just wants to disappear around that thing. It's clearly designed for little people and little hands. And I think that's a problem. We need to make one that's adult size.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything that we've heard about you, Eric, it's true to form. When you have, you're substantial is what we've heard. And so you like those little things in your hands, it doesn't work. Like you need to be able to,
you
want to wrap your hand around it.
You got to wrap your hand around it. Yeah.
Damn right.
Otherwise it just disappears. Yeah. Can't find it.
So with the slide thing, I mean, as I'm training, he was more of a young man. He was in it was like high school age. He would go to the swings, and I'm doing, say, a half-hour training session or whatever, where I'm doing, push-up, squats, pull-ups at the park or whatever. And there's a kid on the swings, and he's for a half hour on a swing set, and the kid's 16 years old. And then I'm thinking, like, am I weird that I'm here? Is he weird? Is this weird? Is it weird that I'm thinking about this? Like, there's a whole thing that goes on in my head after this. But even doing the swings, there's some core work that goes along with it, besides pushing your kids on the swings. Even as adults, there's not a lot of times that you go on the swing, but it's an adventure. It's fun. It's, I don't know. What do you guys think about the swings for adults? What we settling on this?
I feel like once we become adults, all of a sudden we have no time for play anymore. And it's like, I like that the guy was on the swing. I don't think you need to have necessarily a reason like, oh, I'm working on, my leg extension and flexion and trying to squeeze myself. He's just fucking swinging on the swing and have a good time, clearing his head. We never used to have to explain ourselves when we were kids. We would just run around and play outside. But now that we're adults, and yes, I might have done a few things that were frowned upon in some places, but that's neither here nor there. But I don't like the fact that you need to explain why you're at the park, right? You could just be playing on the fucking monkey bars, having a good time, but you need to say it's a scheduled workout to be like, oh, okay. Well, that's fine. He's there. That's acceptable. It's okay. What if you're just going on the monkey bars because it's fun as fuck to be able to try and get across? That's cool too. The ground's lava. Let's try and go. Like, whenever we think about adults, you got to be buttoned up and serious and be like, you can't ever have fun just for the sake of having fun. There's got to be a goal behind everything. And I think that's where we don't need to think that way as much as we are,
And look at the equipment from back in the day, right? It was simple stuff. And it was literally like gymnastics equipment. This is what you get to play on, kid. It's gymnastic stuff, which is great for your core, great for your grip strength, great for your upper body, shoulders, all this stuff. That was playtime. Now you got to spend $5,000 on a Peloton or whatever. All the gear's gotten infinitely more complicated. Back in the day, it was just put something on the ground and let centrifugal force take hold, right? The merry-go-round, get on that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Fling some kids into the next neighborhood on that thing. You got thrown off of it a few times when you're little. Right?
Absolutely.
Somebody's like, hop on. I'm going to take you for a little spin. You don't have to do any of the work. Just sit there.
Even the person that's doing this, like as you're spinning the kids, it's what a great workout because you really have to run to get them going. And then when little Timmy flies off, like you rub a little dirt on it, it'll be fine. He flips around. Maybe there's a slight concussion, but the life lessons that come along with it, it's invaluable. Tremendous. And to your point, Anthony, why don't we do that shit anymore? I'll tell you exactly why, and I'll wrap it all the way back into Eric's introduction. What we're worried about is how we're perceived by other people. The reason why we don't go out and do things like that and just have fun, it could be we're past that in our lives, but I would challenge, you're worried about what other people are going to think of you. You're worried about what is it going to look like if I go to a park right now and I'm on the monkey bars. What are people going to think of me? Well, here's the thing. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit what people think of you? If you can live your life in an authentic way and not really care about what, Mr. Butterworth down the street is thinking about you, when you free yourself from the opinions and judgments of others, then you can truly live. And living in an authentic way is what our guest is doing. This is what Eric is doing right now. He's living in an authentic way, and his podcast is called Return to Authenticity. See what I did there? Authentic. Brought it all the way back. So tell us why. Why is that the name of the podcast?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I started the podcast, so I really enjoy podcasts. I have for years, and I started to play with the idea of starting my own podcast, and then I went down the path of what would it be about? Like, what do I want it to be about? And about the same time, I was also going through working with a coach and looking inside for the first time into myself, into what was really motivating me and what did I want to be doing with my career. Right. So I'd passed 50 years old, and I think had that moment for the first time. And I started asking the question, is this what I was put on the earth to do? The things that I'm doing career-wise, I was having a very successful career in sales and marketing, corporate America, all of that, and enjoyed it. At the same time, I still was wondering, is this what I'm cut out to do? And so I hired a coach, started really looking inside and analyzing when I'm having my best days, when I'm having kind of a perfect day or my best days, what do those days look like? And I came to my best days are when I'm pouring into others, when I'm investing in others, and when I'm working with others to help them achieve the goals that they've set. And I certainly was doing a bit of that as a leader on some sales teams and investing in others. And I came to this conclusion that I wanted to do that as a career. So I left corporate America and started a coaching practice, right? Started doing some coaching of individuals and helping them accomplish various goals. At the same time, I looked at that pivot and I thought, for my clients, the people I'm working with, it's inspiring to see others that have gone down a similar road. So this idea of returning to your authentic self, returning to the person you were born to be and with the talents and gifts that you were given, if you've strayed off course of that, which I think a lot of people do. I know I had strayed off from what some of my true talents were. I was putting some of those things in a shadow, kind of minimizing them and pushing forward on other things that I think I did well at. And I started to recognize, what's the point of hiding true gifts, and why do we do that? And so that was part of the coaching as well, was this whole idea of helping people discover what are their true authentic gifts, what are they good at, what do they enjoy doing, and it kind of married up with the whole idea of the podcast of I want to capture people's stories of their making a pivot to their authentic self, pivoting towards something that they really love, toward their gifts and talents. And so when I had both of you gentlemen on the show, we captured those stories, right? We talked about your pivots in life and where you went from where your career initially was into where you are today. And so that's kind of where how the podcast came to be, and how it kind of fits with my coaching.
Leaving the world that you were in, you mentioned the whole Fortune 500 idea. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that is a big deal. Having left the education industry, from being a principal to taking that leap of faith, where it didn't always go the way that I thought. It wasn't like I jumped off a cliff and perished, but I jumped off a cliff and then hit something that was like 3 feet below, and I stumbled and fell a little bit, so it wasn't a smooth path for me. Talk to us a little bit about how that process was like for you.
Yeah, I would agree. It's not a smooth path. I had done 30 years in corporate America and did well at it. And I enjoyed it. It was good. It was good work. There were good people, great companies that I worked for. And so it was I like to say it was a path that was so well trodden, it was paved, so it was a very familiar road that I was on. And to leave it was challenging, no doubt. It was challenging. And then I've learned things along the way that I never expected to learn, and opportunities have presented themselves to me that I never expected to uncover. And so it's been a true journey, and one that I planned for, but that I had no idea what I was getting into. Right. So that whole idea, and I think I've heard Jamie Gruber talk about it. I know he's a friend of yours and mine as well, about this idea of you can plan, but then you just got to go, because at some point you really aren't going to know what you're about to step into until you get out there. Right. So the whole idea of, like he says, ready, fire, aim, that whole idea. And I think there's absolute truth in that, right? You just don't know what you're going to uncover. So for me, it was, you go to start a business, you got to make the phone ring. You got to, create some awareness of what you're doing. I built an entire program. There was a lot of work that had to be done. And so there was learning along the way, for sure.
Who were the guys, the gals along your journey that were mentors, coaches for you?
So my first coach was Rick Alexander. Rick's a friend of Angelo Cisco as well. It's actually how I found Angelo Cisco. I was in a program as part of some of the one-on-one coaching I was doing with Rick. He also then put together a men's cohort, and I was in that, and Angela was a guest speaker on that, in that cohort. And so Rick's been a huge help to me, and has become a really good friend. So he's certainly one. Angelo's been great. Angelo's also made himself very available to me, and through my journey as well. And you've been fantastic, man. I mean, like you said early on in the introduction, we've talked regularly for the past year and a half, have never met in person. And the fact that you've made yourself available for questions and help, you helped me tremendously with the podcast, getting that off the ground, has been incredible, right? You can't literally, owe you a debt, right? It just can't thank you enough. There's no way to say can't thank you enough without having a lot of negations in there, right? It's one of those things. Try to eliminate negations. Can't thank you enough. You just can't do it. So yeah, but truly can't thank you enough. And so there's been people that have, if you look at the hero's journey, right, the whole idea of dropping into the unknown, and then mentors and guides present themselves on that journey to help you figure out what you're doing in the darkness, and what is this magical elixir that you're destined to take back to the light, to take back to the world. You need mentors and guides to help you on that journey, to help you fight the demons you're going to face. And you've been one of those mentors and guides, and Angelo's been, and certainly Rick's been huge in that as well. So those are the first few that come to mind.
I appreciate that. It's while we've gone through this journey, and I've recognized the journey that you've been on, having gone through the similar journey perhaps a year prior to, there's this level of, when you see somebody else just going through the same thing that you just went through, when you have an opportunity to turn around and say, here's what worked for me, here's what didn't work for me, don't do this, whatever you do. It was cool. And your willingness to trust me and my advice. I mean, who the hell am I in this position? You trusted me with a couple of things, which I appreciate as well. And thank you for saying that. I wasn't fishing for, I was this mentor for you, but
we know you were. Easy.
All right, let me cross that question off of the list. Tell me more about me.
How can we get the light back on me here? Because this is who I like to think about.
Enough about me. Let's talk about me. When you started the podcast, though, you had an idea of bringing out this people's visions of themselves, like they were on this path and then they got derailed in some capacity. Then they went through something challenging to get back on this journey, or this authentic space that they were heading into. What lessons did you learn about yourself as you were hosting this podcast? And I'll give you an example. Like for me, I thought I was a great public speaker. I was able to do it in front of a crowd, in front of an audience when I was a principal. But once I started doing it in front of a microphone, I recognized all of my shortcomings. And then it happened again as I was interviewing people, thinking, do I have enough to say? Do I have questions asked? Is this interesting? And so I went through a lot of that negative self-talk. For you, what were some of the lessons that you learned as you were starting this podcast?
That's a great question. What's come out for me on the podcast is I love the human element, right? The interacting with people like yourself, like Anthony, all the guests that I've had on my show has been a true blessing. Just a really incredible to hear people's stories. And that, when I look at my coaching business, the most beautiful thing about it is it's the humanity, right? I'm interacting with human beings that are on their walk of life. And it's a gift to be able to be part of that walk and to help them in some way. The podcast is the same. I have these conversations, and I've had guests say, I've never really shared that before outside of maybe one or two people. And yet I felt comfortable enough to share that on this, in our discussion, our conversation. And there's magic in that, right? There's divinity in that. I mean, it's human beings interacting with human beings. We go through life, we walk around every day. We go to Starbucks, we're out and about around humans all the time. And I think we often do our best job to sort of ignore all the people around us just to get the crap we need to get done and get back on with our day. So often the human piece is missing. And the podcast is it's all humanity, right? So it's really been it's incredibly honoring to have these conversations with people. And I didn't count on that, when I went into it. I didn't really recognize how meaningful that was going to be for me when I did the podcast. And, I feel like I've recorded 41 episodes, and this week will be number 32 is coming out on Wednesday. And I feel like I've got 41 friends, people that I didn't know before, and now I feel like they're truly friends. I can text them, I can call them. And if they were to text me or call me or ask for anything, I would absolutely help. And that's awesome when you think about it. Right. And I didn't count on that. That wasn't in my plan at all.
And to your credit, you as a podcast host, and I would recommend if you're listening to this, you're finding value in it, go check out Eric's podcast, Return to Authenticity. You do the work getting to know the guest. When I went on your show, you knew things about me that a lot of people didn't know about me. And I had to be like, wait, did that really happen? Wait, what did I do when I was in 8th grade? Are you sure about that? You're like, no, you did. You absolutely brought a Playboy into school and like little.
Why are they always under the pine trees? They're always under the pine trees.
You think that's the good space to hide them. Fun aside, we had a guy named Carl Thomas on, and I think it was episode 117. Yeah. It was when shame gets real, and Carl helps people that were addicted to pornography, right? And his whole thing is about that. So he was addicted to it, and he's works with the church in some capacity, but a lot of it is the shame associated with being addicted to pornography. And we had a whole discussion about the hiding porn, the porn magazines before porn was available at your fingertips on your phone, the porn magazines that you would put in, hide it under a tree trunk or like a stump in the woods. And so the pine tree is, I guess, where you hid your good porn, Eric. Is that what you're telling us?
I'm telling you, dude, I heard that episode and I'm like, I can literally remember the pine tree. And I remember it was like that movie with Richard Dreyfuss. What was it called? Where it was like a bunch of young kids and they went on a vision quest along a railroad track to find a dead body.
Oh, come on. That was Stand By Me.
Stand By Me, right? Yeah. This was our Stand By Me moment. It was like, hey, 3 blocks over on such and such a street, we knew the kid's name. I can't remember what it was, who lived in that house. There's a Playboy underneath the big pine tree in the front yard. And it was like, really, is it possible that could actually be true? And so me and a buddy went, on this long walk, and you're wondering, is it actually going to be there? There's no way it can be there. It can't be there. We get to the house and you're kind of doing the old, the slide walk by, like, yeah, I'm just walking by your house. I'm not staring at the front pine tree, don't mind us. And we're like, it's not there. It's not there. And then we get one angle where you go, wait, I think I might see a curled up corner of a magazine. And so then you have to just make a run for it, dart in there. And sure enough, this wadded up Playboy had been touched by who knows how many human hands had handled this thing at this point, right? But this wadded up it had been wet. So it was mostly wrecked, but it was actually there. And it was truly like we had found a buried treasure. It was unbelievable.
The Holy Grail.
You scurry off, you try to peel the pages apart. We don't want to go too far there. Understand like what's going on, who's here. Oh, I think I see. We have to put it back because then you have to respect the vision quest, right? Someone else might come later. You can't take it all for yourself. So
your heart is beating 1,000 miles a minute,
freaking out, handshaking.
Right.
Stand By Me is a great movie. Well, here's the thing that with all of the actors that are in that movie, it's based on a Stephen King novel called The Body, I believe.
The Body.
And it was basically 12-year-old boys rites of passage before they got into that middle school time frame, and they were going on a hero's journey to do something. There was the mentors along the way. They all, faced their trials, tribulations, inner demons. During River Phoenix was in it. I still remember that Will Wheaton was Gordy. And at the end, when he has the gun and Kiefer Sutherland is Ace, and he points the gun at him, and he goes, I'll never forget the line. He goes, "Suck my fat one, you cheap dime store hood," as he's pointing the gun at Ace, who's Kiefer Sutherland. And then afterwards, River Phoenix, who is Chris, says, "Whoever said you had a fat one, Gordy?" Goes, "Fattest one in 3 counties." Just, as a 12-year-old watching that movie, it is just absolutely tremendous. We've never talked about Stand By Me.
I love that you remember that. That's so
dude, good. That line, unbelievable. Your memory is phenomenal, dude. I got to tell you, the fact that it's like when you play golf with a guy and he's like, "Oh yeah, you remember on the 7th hole, it was like a slight dog to the right, 130 yard approach over water." I'm going, I can't even remember the last hole I played, like let alone going back, 8 holes into the round. And yet you can do that. You pull up numbers of your episodes, like that was number 111, so-and-so. And he said this. I'm thinking, how do you have that? That memory is a true gift. I cannot do that.
Building men of character, integrity, strength, compassion, and empathy through transformational mentoring, coaching, and motivational speaking is our mission here at Building Men. To work with me as a one-on-one life coach, you can find information in the show notes, or you can visit our website at buildingmen.io, where you can book a free 30-minute discovery call to help you become the strongest version of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, photographic memory. I know.
And I'm horrible in golf, so the golf thing never really resonated with me. But when they flip and they all get tails, and he's like, "Oh, sincerely, this is bad. We got a goocher."
Goocher.
Teddy Duchamp is like, "Come on, Vern, that's baby stuff. Nobody believes in moons and goochers." That's the stuff that occupies my headspace. When Julie's like, "What are you thinking about right now?" Like this deep philosophical thing. No, it's. I'm thinking about Teen Wolf. I'm thinking about.
Like, the meme when the couple's laying in bed and the wife's looking at the husband and she's like, what is he like she's giving him this dirty look, like, what is he thinking about? She thinks he's thinking about another woman, and he's in there thinking about fucking a Seinfeld episode that happened before, and what George Costanza said to Jerry, or what tuna on rye.
Right. But thank you for recognizing that. It's a rare thing that I don't know if it's working or not. I really enjoy being able to, speaking to a guest, be able to pull something out that may resonate, or people that are listening be like, oh my God, I remember that spot, and stand by me. So when you're with your gifts and what you're doing on Return to Authenticity, what you do is what I mentioned before, like you're able to have that level of embracing humanity, understanding who your guest is, the best way to relate to that specific guest. You tell your questions to what that person has gone through. We do the same thing here. We don't script. We have one question at the end that we ask consistently. Other than that, we like to go with the flow. For you, is there a specific question that you really like to ask to the guests that are on your show? Or was there one question that you asked to one guest that you like sat back and you're like, yeah, I nailed it?
I don't know if there's one question. I like, my first question is always, let's go to the beginning and talk about what it was like growing up in your home. Like, what was childhood like? And I feel like that is disarming to a degree, right? Gets the person comfortable, like, okay, I can tell you stories about my childhood, right? Gets them talking. And I think often we don't consider or think about our childhood a lot, right? We just we're going about our day, and that's not a general question you're going to be asked. Tell me about what it was like growing up in your home. And when people go down that road, it pulls up emotion. It's either going to be good typically, or possibly bad, or maybe mostly good with a trauma or two, something kind of mixed in there. But that is I enjoy that aspect of the show, because and usually from that, there's a million roads to go down. Now there's typically a pivot in there somewhere that we're working toward getting out, like having them share that story of making a big change in their life, not necessarily a business change. It could be a life change or a family change or something like that. But the beginning of just kind of sharing their childhood, it almost, from my, when I think about thinking back to these different interviews, it warms people up, right? They just, you can see them enjoying thinking back to their childhood, because there's good memories there.
So when you think back to your own childhood, your own experience growing up, a lot of what we're doing right now is we're telling stories, and we're also extrapolating stories from the guests that we're speaking to, right? There's a level of skill that comes along with that. The tricky part is being able to grab onto a story from your youth and then weave in a life lesson to it that'll be entertaining, of benefit, of some type of inspiration or motivation to people that are listening. So if you were to pick out one story that you can tell around a campfire, and you're like, well, I went through this was the story, and here's the layered lesson that comes along with it. Bring us back into little Eric, just got off the slide, running home from the porn pine. Tell us about a story that you could weave a life lesson into.
Yeah. So I grew up, and it was a Stand By Me type of memory I have. I had a group of neighborhood friends, and we had a railroad track that went behind all of our houses. And it, for most of my, and this is from basically birth till 12 years old, I lived in Buffalo, New York, in a suburb of Buffalo. And we had this railroad track back there. And for about probably 10 of those years, it was an actual live train. And then the last couple of years they had dismantled it, and it was no longer a train back there. But we had crazy adventures on that train track, man. It was, and Buffalo, so you get crazy snow and all that stuff. I remember going back there, again, the intelligence of a 10, 11-year-old kid and his buddies, and intentionally building a giant snow fort on the track that was designed to derail the train, right? And it was right behind our house. And so you figure, because we don't want to walk too far away, it's cold out. So you just go right behind the house up on the track, build the giant snow wall, and then we'd go hide right alongside the track and wait for the train to come by, because we wanted to see it. Of course, you don't want to go too far away to see that. And you're not thinking like, okay, if we actually derail this thing, there's going to be, 40 or so cars that are going to go careening in all directions, and we're all going to die, and all the houses are going to get set on fire. We didn't consider that. Of course, the train comes along and it flicks this snow fort off the track like it wasn't even there, just snow everywhere. And of course, we get showered in that. But I mean, so we did just stupid stuff like that, build forts in the, we'd go beyond the track into the woods that were beyond that, build snow forts, and we'd find scrap lumber and build actual clubhouses and forts and stuff like that. It was like that movie, and that track became this, like, I don't know, artery that we would walk along, and you could walk into town, you could walk in either direction and go pretty long way and just be secluded, right, with your buddies and just hanging out in the woods. And so we did that growing up. I remember that very vividly. And then playing sports with my buddies, and it would always just depended on the season of the year. If it was street hockey, if it was wintertime, we play football in the fall, we play baseball. I mean, whatever season was in, we were playing that in the street or in somebody's front yard. And it was fantastic. We had a lot of buddies. And now if I look back on that, several of those guys have passed away. They died young. Some are doctors, and some are, just kind of disappeared. And similar to how that movie Stand By Me ended, right? They had, like, one of the main characters died, like saving somebody from being mugged, and then somebody else became a lawyer, and somebody became a writer. And I think about our neighborhood, and it was a lot like that. So there's some really great memories growing up as a younger kid, in Buffalo. It was definitely cool.
Before I get to the Buffalo piece, we have to throw in a little bit of sports onto the episode. You're a huge Bills fan. Anthony, do you have any stories like that? Do you have any like crazy stories that happened that you pulled some deeper life lesson out of growing up?
That I pulled deeper. Wait, you know what? I was just remembering this. I had like this, it was like yesterday morning, this like popped into my memory, and this involves you. And when we were in Old Bridge,
okay,
when I went next door, it was maybe like 3 houses over, and I broke into their garage and stole one of their balls that I wanted to use, and the kid wasn't home, and I took it, and the alarm went off, and I ran back, and you came in, and you were like, "Ant, the cops are coming for you, like they're going to take you away." And I'm upstairs in my room just panicking, crying my eyes out. And sure enough, the police did come because they did have an alarm system. But you were like, "You got to talk to them or they're going to send you to jail. You're going to go to prison for a really long time." And I was shivering upstairs, like literally. I just remember panicking when that happened. I refused to go outside. And that's when therapy started for me.
My God.
But I remember, like, you came in and you were just freaking me out when I did that. Yeah, I don't know why that popped into my head, but I'm trying to think of something that happened where I had like a life lesson that came with it. I mean, there is no life lesson in this, but I remember taking, when it would snow, people would like pee in the snowballs and throw my cars and stuff. You do that whole thing. Have you done that before?
I never did that.
Oh, you do.
I wanted to touch the snow after I peed on it, but
yeah.
Would you make a snowball and then like put your penis into it and just squirt out a little pee? Like, what did you do?
I would just literally make the snowball and then just pee on the outside of it, and then you throw it at somebody, and it was really fucked up. But But anyway, that leads me to my next point where I took a dump in the woods and scooped it up and I threw it and it hit a car on the windshield.
Dude.
And this guy stopped and I just took off running.
Was this a snow poop ball?
Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I don't even know if you could call it a snowball. It was just sort of like I had a mound of snow and I threw it over the side of this little, like, there was like this little side thing before the road. And yeah, again, I guess the lesson in that is I should use the bathroom before I go out and play.
Yes.
God, how old were you? 32? 30?
Yeah, I was going to say it was like 3 weeks ago. I don't remember. I was probably like 10, maybe.
Wow. That was a shitty drive for that guy.
Yeah, I know. That's rough.
Wow.
Probably having a crappy day. Yeah, just getting back from work.
Never happened. Never happened to me before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, here's the thing. So, like, you use this moment as a piece of reflection. So if I was 16 years old at that time, being a dick to you, like you stole a ball and the alarm went off, I mean, I think I was trying to teach you some kind of a lesson there. It was very sadistic in the way that I did it. Having an opportunity to redo that moment, I would say, Anthony, like, that wasn't right. Like, you need to make amends for that right now. I'll walk back up with you. You need to put the ball back and apologize to the people and you took the ball from. Like, that's what I would do now. Not tell you that you were going to be locked up in, Fort Leavenworth.
Right. And telling me I was going to go away for a really long time.
You'll never see your mom and dad again.
Yeah. I think I was 5 years old too when that happened. And
So I was 19.
Wow. Yeah.
Jesus. And that's when I switched my major to become an educator. I switched from business management to education. And that's the shit that I was doing. That's really, I'm going to really have to think about my whole life path. If I said that to you, wow, that's really, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm still a little traumatized from that, but that's
I want to hug you right now.
And wait, one other, do you remember this when we were at the mall the one time? And
what did I do? I fucked you up some other way, right?
Yeah. You just, you threw me over the balcony and no, we were tossing pennies over the side at the mall, like on the upper level.
Okay.
And I threw a penny and it hit some guy on top of the head. I remember. And
me and you were doing that?
No, I was doing it with one of my friends.
Okay. I remember that.
Yeah, remember you were like 24? No, I was probably like 11 maybe, and I was doing it with a friend and it hit some guy in the head, and then you made me go up and apologize to him. And so that was a good brother experience for you, because I had to go up and like tuck my tail between my legs and be like, I'm sorry, I'm the one that threw the penny and it hit you. It was like one of the little middle like kiosk people who were in there. So yeah,
I did the same thing when you and Brian McNiven were playing. We were playing catch at the Giants game, and McNiven launched the ball and it went and hit some dude in the face, and you guys were just going to run. And I was like, you guys got to go over there, get the ball back, and apologize and say that you did that. And he did not want to do that. And I was like, you have to do it. Like, you have to go over, like, own what you just did there. All right. So I feel a little bit better, because right now I'm feeling like the worst brother in the history of the world.
You redeem yourself. Yeah.
So, all right.
One other thing kind of comes to mind too, if I think about like childhood life story or a lesson. So when we moved to Texas, it was 1980. I was 12, and it was the hottest summer at the time, the hottest summer on record. So it's like 1,000,000 degrees, and I couldn't have felt more, out of place as moving from Buffalo, New York to Texas, didn't know a single soul, moving into middle school, which is a messed up time of your life, right? I mean, that's an awkward, difficult time. And I remember my mom taking me to school the first day and pulling up to the school and her saying, do you want me to come in and kind of make sure you know where you're going? And I just said, no, I got it. I'll figure it out. And so she's like, okay. And so I got out of the car and I had to walk up this hugely long sidewalk to the school building. I remember visually walking up to it and being like scared shitless, but at the same time thinking, I'm going to figure this out, right? I can't have my mom taking me into the school building as a 12-year-old 7th grader. I don't want anybody to see my mom, right? And so, but just having the courage to kind of step out there, as I think about that, the ability to do hard things, the ability to do things that are uncomfortable is something have some amount of skill at, I think, and when I'm reflecting back. And but I think about that moment and it's like, yeah, that was definitely challenging. I remember being nervous as hell, but still making myself do it.
And so where does that come from? Where does it come from? Some people are willing to step into the uncomfortable experience of doing those hard things. You know it's going to be difficult. You know it's going to be challenging. Some people will shy away from it, will hide from it, will do everything in their power to not go through it, where other people don't want to do it and they roll up their sleeves and do it. What is that? Is that, are you born with that? Does that come from experience? Does it come from trial and error?
It's probably some of all of it. As a young kid, so I was the youngest in our home. My brother was 7 years older than me. My sister is 5 years older than I am. And so you're always, as the young one, you have someone to watch, right? So you have role models to kind of keep an eye on and go, how did they do it? How did they do it? And either choose, well, that seems like a good idea, or that's a terrible idea. I'm going to do something different. But as a, significantly younger than my siblings, I had to make those sort of choices, I think, fairly frequently, right? Where you have to make this, I'm going to just step forward and do this. Otherwise you just get left behind. So I think there was some of that where it was taught at a young age where, you had to just, I was always the small, you're always the little guy. You're always the one athletically. I wasn't up to snuff with my brother because he's just, 7 years older and a really good athlete. And so you're always kind of dealing from a short deck, right? You're always kind of like, okay, I'm behind the eight ball, even starting out. I just have to step into it. Otherwise, I'm going to end up watching from the sideline constantly. So I think there is some of those lessons that get taught at a young age, and you're just kind of born into. And then others is, I had to learn as an adult to get. I would say I went through a period of time as an adult where I did stay extremely comfortable, and I didn't like pushing out into unknown things. Physically and in career wise too. And then I don't know. I can't put my finger on a moment when I started to do more of that, but I definitely did. I definitely did start taking more risks career wise, start taking more challenges physically. And I got to where I really enjoy that. Right.
What's the thing that's in front of you right now that you are unsure about, that you're like, I don't know if I could do this? It's the one thing that's like getting in your way potentially.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say it's being an entrepreneur, right? It's this whole new world of not being a W-2 employee where that magic thing happens every 2 weeks and money shows up in your checking account, right? So I did that for 30 years. And while jobs were challenging and hard and stressful and all that stuff, you didn't question the paycheck was going to be there. Now, as an entrepreneur, I make it happen every single day. And so there's always, well, for me anyway, now there's still that every morning I wake up and it's that question like, man, I got to go make this happen, right? I got to go get after it and make it happen. So I don't know that there's something standing in my way. It's just more that voice of either fear or the unknown that's chirping there, right? So it's out there going, hey, you got to do this.
All right. Before we give an opportunity to let us know where we can find you, Anthony, any final questions?
Yeah. So Eric, you've listened to the podcast before. We like to ask everyone this question. So the Building Men audience, the people listening right now, what do you feel is one thing that they can do once they shut this podcast off to kind of kickstart their day, get their life going in the right direction?
That's a great question. For me, it's move, get moving, get your body moving. When I look at, and when I talk to my clients, even though we're dealing with a lot of psychology things and introspective things, a key component of that is always, you have to get your physicality dialed in as well. You don't have to be some crazy athlete, but movement is so important. So I would encourage your audience, get up and move every day. Even if you can only move for 4 or 5 minutes, right? Get up and go for a 4 or 5 minute walk in the morning, do a 4 or 5 minute walk in the afternoon. It doesn't have to be super long endurance stuff. Just get your body moving. That little bit of movement, going for a 2 to 5 minute walk, again, as short as that is, if that's all you can spare, it gets the blood flowing through your brain. It's so, so good for you. So movement's important. I've in the last couple of years, I've really explored the whole idea of cold exposure. It's become super popular, I think, now, which is for good reason. There's a lot of great studies that have come out showing the importance of cold exposure. So cold showers, cold plunges, but everybody can do a cold shower, even if, do a cold shower. You don't have to do 10 minutes of entirety of being cold. Take your regular shower, the last minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes of it, just turn the hot off. And if you can't turn it all the way off, turn it down until you can turn it all the way off, and do a minute or 2 minutes of just cold water. Great for the brain, great for the mind, like a shot of caffeine, really gets you alert. And it also wakes up your body's ability to warm itself. So your body feels the cold and it starts to warm itself, which is great for your own physiology, right? Your body knows how to warm and cool itself. We just tend to forget. The body forgets because we sit in 72-degree air all day long. Well, if you give it a little shock with the cold, your body learns to warm itself. Now you're not dealing with, I'm cold during the day, or I've got a chill, or my fingers or my hands are cold, because your body is learning how to actually take care of itself. So another great thing to do is just do a little cold exposure each day. So a walk and cold exposure. Those are a couple ideas I would suggest for your audience to make themselves better every day.
Awesome. All right. Where do we find you, Eric? How do we get in touch with you?
Well, it's lots of my name. So my website is ericsardina.com. It's just spelled the right way you spell Eric. So ERIC. And then Sardina is SARDINA. ericsardina.com is my website. Instagram is Eric_Sardina 26.2. That's kind of the marathon thing because of my endurance background. So Eric_Sardina 26.2 is my Instagram. Facebook's Eric Sardina, LinkedIn Eric Sardina. And then you mentioned Return to Authenticity. It's on all the podcast platforms. So Return to Authenticity is the podcast, and you can find me there. Email eric@ericsardina.com. Lots of my name. Like I said, it's all in the name.
Awesome. Listen, really appreciate you, man. Appreciate you taking some time to hang with us for a little bit. It's been cool watching you on your journey. Congratulations on what you're doing with the podcast. I think you're an excellent host on the podcast. I enjoyed my time being on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to much success for you in the future.
Thank you so much, brother. I can't thank you enough again for having me on the show. This is my first time behind the mic as a guest of a podcast. So number one, which is fitting given our history together and in this, in the realm of podcast world. So thank you for having me on as a guest. And I'm excited to hear what that sounds like on the other side. So thank you. It's been a pleasure being a guest on your show. It's a fantastic show, and appreciate both of y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Our pleasure. We'll definitely, we'll see you out on the playground sometime.
Yeah, that's right.
So, as you're gripping those girthy monkey bars and
those skinny little tiny monkey bars for those little bitty hands.
Billy Men audience, go one step further than you thought you could go. We'll see you next time on Building Men.
Suck my fat one, you cheap dime store hood.